What I've realized is I think that the school system doesn't really prepare us for success or teach us the necessary skills, because I've realized that, or I've learned that school systems were designed back in the Industrial Revolution, where they're meant to produce factory workers that clock in and out, or in today's world, the corporate world, W-2 workers. So they're not going to teach you like entrepreneur and marketing and a lot of these different things.
All right, so here's something I've been thinking about. When you're starting a business, there's no confusion about your purpose. It's to make money, create stability, and take care of your family. But then one day you kind of get there. You've created that stability, you've created that foundation, and suddenly the thing that was pushing you forward, it disappears. And that's what we're figuring out here on the other side of enough. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs who have hit their goals, but they're still searching for something more. We're talking about what business excellence really looks like on the other side. Let's get into it. We are here with Joshua Sun. I'm really excited to interview him. He is so booked out. I had to wait 2 months to get on a call with this guy. He's handsome. He's in his 40s. He is all-powerful Asian American. I believe that I was talking with Jesse Kwong. He's a Asian Canadian on last week, and I told him I really believe Asian American culture is like some sort of superior culture because they've had a unique time in history to take the best things from the East and the best things from the Western culture and create this hybrid culture where you can shed off the junk from both sides. And obviously I'm highly biased because my kids are biracial and my wife is Asian American. Also, full disclosure, Joshua Sun is technically like my cousin 6 times removed or something. I was thinking about this. So my wife's cousin married your wife's sister. So we've been on a few camping trips, and the reason I'm excited to interview you is because I know that you have success on the outside, but also a lot of success on the inside. I've seen how you handle conflict. I've seen how you handle stressful situations. I've seen how you father your children and how you love your wife. So back to your bio. Joshua Sun is, and please correct me and I want you to go into more detail, but he is a very high-performing mortgage broker. He absolutely crushed it during COVID. And on the side, he started waking up at 3 a.m. and started doing Pace Morby's sub-2 coaching. And so you've been involved with that for, a year and a half now. Can you talk about everything you're working on in as much detail as you want? And I'll ask some clarifying questions.
Yeah, absolutely, man. First of all, thank you, Drew, for having me on the podcast. You are way more handsome than I am, but I appreciate your success in flipping land, and we've done deals together with your land flipping business. So I appreciate you for that, and just your generosity. Like on the camping trips, you gave us so much money that you didn't need to, just for even coming for like a few hours. And I appreciate you doing this podcast just to help people. Your heart to give and help. And you as a father too, you have amazing wife, beautiful wife, and really beautiful kids. Like biracial kids are super cute. So yeah, praise God for that.
I agree. That's true. I receive it.
So yeah, first of all, thank you. And then, yeah, my background is mortgage. Been doing that for 20 years since I graduated college. Wasn't the most fulfilling, but just fell into it because I didn't have anything else I could do. And then met Pace last March in 2024, joined the Sub-2 program, then Gator program a week after that. And then I went to Squad Up Summit in April, and I joined his Owners Club Mastermind, which is a little higher level mastermind with 400 or 500 people. The Sub-2 in Gator has about 16,000 people. And so now I, by God's grace, have transitioned full-time into that. And what I do specifically is I raise capital for real estate deals. And that's something that I didn't even know existed. Before I joined Sub-2, I felt I was never passionate about mortgage, but I felt like the writing was on the wall when ChatGPT came out. And my wife and I have been like thinking we need an additional income stream. We knew real estate was profitable, but my idea of real estate was only flips, which I can't fix anything around the house. So I'm like, that's not going to work for me. But then I got into that, and sub two is about creative finance. So there's so many more ways to do real estate than the traditional way. And there's so many asset classes as well, from RV parks to business acquisition to storage units to co-living. And so I guess just my eyes perspective got open. And then I didn't even know there was such a thing called capital raising, which is that you can make money by connecting investors and capital to people doing deals. And Pace said that's if he could pick any one skill, he has all of them, but if he could pick one, he would pick that one. Like in Hunger Games, you go in a circle and you grab a weapon, because when you can raise capital, people will bring you the deals. Because if you're really good at doing some certain type of deal, whether it's land or Airbnb or multifamily, you're going to scale. And at some point you run out of money. So there's opportunity for you to get into deals by raising capital. And I think of it as a win-win, because we're helping the person who needs a capital scale. We're helping investors have access to deals that they may not have access to otherwise. And then I get to make money for my family. And if there's some kind of impact involved with it, like the foreclosure deals we do, then that's also a plus. But all of that to say, I don't feel like I have a lot of success at all. I've just started about a year and 3 or 4 months ago. And it's all by God's grace, whatever I've been able to do. But it's been fun. I feel a lot more fulfilled, and not being tied down to the 9 to 5 and being in the mortgage business, but I still have that business because I partnered with somebody to run it. So I still make an income from that, but I don't have to be tied and be available for that.
I think you're being overly humble because I've watched your journey, I think from the beginning. When I'm trying to think when I met you, probably right when you started Pace Morby's Sub 2 program. And I just know that you have been on a rocket ship in that program and really done a great job networking. And I just know that it's not normal. For people who aren't in real estate, Pace Morby is a titan in a corner of the business. And Joshua is here. He's sitting down with Pace, interviewing him live. I know you've done that multiple times because I follow you on social media. And so I think you're being overly humble. You've certainly done quite well networking. Why don't you break down? Okay, so let's back up. So with the mortgage stuff, it worked really well for many years. You believe that it's going to stop working as well. So you have been transitioning out of that. You brought someone on to run the business for you, right? So that's bringing in some side income. Why don't you break down the Sub 2, like in layman's terms, what is that whole community? Like when you raise capital for a deal, talk like you're explaining it to like your aunt and uncle. So what kind of deals are you raising capital for? What is your cut? Like how many people do you have to talk to raise $1 million? What does that look like under the hood?
Yeah, great question. Going back on the success, I don't feel like I am successful because I just bought my first Airbnb with 2 partners, excuse me, last year. We bought it subject to, and we got a great rate at 2.25%. But like other people in Sub 2 and Owners Club, they have, I don't know, 30 doors, 100 doors, 400 doors. So I'm like, okay, I'm definitely a small fish in the pond, but I think God has definitely gotten me on a fast track by his favor. So I praise God for that. Now to answer your question for raising capital, it depends because in the Sub 2 community, there's so many people that do so many different things. For me, what I do to raise capital right now is I partnered with somebody named Ty, and I met him through our other partner, Josh Dismon. So there's 3 of us. And Josh is a Sub 2 member. That's how I met him. He's a tax pro in Vegas. And he started doing my taxes. So I met him. And then we bought the Airbnb together. So that's how I met Ty last year. And then Ty told me about the foreclosure deals that he's been doing for 23 years. He's saved 150 to 200 homes. And then he's basically said that, hey, if we have more investors, we can help more people. And he told me about the details. I was like, this sounds great. So in December, we formed our own company. So now I'm raising capital for our own deals. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our investors are people I already knew, that have a relationship with, whether it's friends or family or mortgage clients or realtor partners, or in the Gator community. So Sub 2, they're all under Pace Morby's kind of community and brand. Sub 2 are people who go after the deals. Like they'll go door knock foreclosures or call people. And
explain Sub 2 briefly and Gator.
Yeah.
Because I know.
That's a great question. So Sub 2 is short for subject to. which means you can buy a property by taking over the existing loan and existing payments. And you could do that buying a home, a car, a phone. That means you don't have to go to the bank and get a new loan. And this is totally legal. People have been doing it for 50 plus years. Just it wasn't really made popular until Pace started doing it about 5 years ago. And so that's one of the many ways of creative finance. The second most popular way of creative finance is seller finance. Let's say I'm selling you a house. Let's say it's a $500,000 house. Let's say I own it free and clear. And let's say you give me 400,000, and then the remaining $100,000 I can do a seller finance, meaning I can become the bank and we can work out some terms. You can give me, let's say, $100 a month for X number of months at whatever rate. So that's the other type. There's a lot more other kind of variations of that, but those are the two most popular, subject to and seller finance. But what that allows you to do is, in our example with the Airbnb, we have a 2.25% rate, which is super low on a rental property versus what market rate today would be. I don't know, probably like 7.5%, something like that. So
Yeah.
allows you to cash flow better. And then also when you buy property, especially if you're looking to invest, if you do a conventional loan, you need 25% down at least, right? 20 or 25% down, which can be a lot. But if you buy it subject to, you can negotiate. It's all about negotiating. It's all about coming up with creative solutions. And you can structure it in a creative way where you can put little or zero money down and you can buy properties. So that allows you to buy more properties with better rates and better terms so that you can cash flow better. So that's kind of sub two. So people, again, going after deals in all the different asset classes. Gator is basically the private money lending that finances these deals. So a lot of these deals, they need money as a second lien position or a second loan because let's say you buy a property for a fix and flip. A hard money lender will give you the first loan to buy that property at, let's say, 70% of the value. But let's say you need another 100K or whatever that amount is to do the renovation. And after you renovate it, the value goes up. But a normal bank's not going to finance that. So you're going to have to go to private money and offer them higher rates, different terms. And that's what the Gator community is. So that's just one example. So another way to think of it is like in the mortgage business, there's like the realtors who find the deals, go after the deals, get the deals under contract. But then the loan officers are the ones who are bringing the capital, or the private money lenders in this case, bringing the capital to do these creative finance deals.
What would be a typical interest rate in the housing world for first position lien and then second position?
You mean fix and flips type stuff?
Yeah.
Or hard money? Hard money is anywhere from 10 to 12%, I would say right now. Second position, like the private money lenders,
The
it depends.
Gator.
Like the Gators are, I think Gators are spoiled. Like our deals are at like projected 60% annual rates. I would say a lot of Gator
Okay.
deals are probably around 40 to 50%, 60% because of the additional risk to offset that. But then it could be as low as maybe 20 or 30% annual. So you do get really good returns on these type of deals, projected, of course.
So you guys don't, like a second position Gator loan wouldn't be based on annual interest rate. It would be based on, hey, this project, we expect it to take 90 days. We'll pay you a 15% flat rate of return, ROI. And then if it truly takes 90 days, that's a 60% annual interest. Is that kind of how it would work?
Yeah, you can structure it different ways. You could do 5% a month, but then with late fees. So if it goes past that 90 days, it could be continue to go at the 5% a month. Or it could be like, hey, it's 15% flat. It's estimated 90 days, but if it goes to 6 months, it's still the 15%. So it just depends on the deal. But I would say for private money lenders to lend on it, usually they would want to see late fees or interest to continue if it goes late.
Now, what happens? Do you have any buddies that really have like hundreds of Gator loans under their belts, and what's their default rate?
There's people in the Gator community who's been doing it for a while. Gator, I think, started around 22 or 3 years ago. Their rates, again, usually Gators, I feel like, are the most expensive. They're probably like, you're looking at probably 5% a month. So around 50, 60% annual around there.
And then, but what about default rates, like from their perspective? So, how many
Like deals that don't
loans?
go through?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? So there's a lot of deals that are, people have lost money, people are stuck and delayed. I have a couple deals right now that are late, like a year. It looks like we're still able to get our money back and stuff. It's just going to take time. And for this reason, because my partner Ty, He has 23 years experience doing deals, good deals, bad deals. When he was 11, actually, his father passed away, left him an inheritance, and his grandfather put a hit on him to try to get that. So he's been actually fighting his grandfather since 11, all of this
Hmm.
stuff. So that's how he's so knowledgeable about it. But then he, through our group of investors for our foreclosure deals, he has just been naturally helping people talk about their bad deals and try to get their money back. So 4 weeks ago, on Saturday at 9, we started doing this weekly. We have something called the Bad Deal Chat, and where people just come on. It's more laid back because it's not the weekday. There's no phones and texts and emails and stuff like that. And we just talk, and people just share their bad deals, and Ty, with his wisdom that God gives him, comes up with solutions. And we have people who pull together. If a deal needs capital, some people might come in with the capital to help them. So that's been really cool. But as far as default rate, I know that's not an answer to your question, but it's hard to say because I don't know how many people I do, but I do know there's a lot of people who have lost a lot of money in bad deals.
Would you say, if you had a guess, would it be like 1 in 10 loans is a bad loan?
Maybe closer to 1 in 4, 1 in 5, maybe.
Okay. But the math still shakes out, right? 60% annual returns, 20% default rate. Still makes sense. Okay, so moving on. So we talked about your mortgage broker business briefly, talked about Sub2, talked about Gator. What else are you working on?
So the foreclosure deals were that's my primary kind of deal that I'm raising money for. We're partnering with Love Justice International, which is an anti-trafficking faith-based organization, and they have a really cool, unique approach in that they prevent trafficking before it happens. And the way they do that is they monitor transit points and they intercept suspicious looking adults and children. And they've rescued over 80,000 people from trafficking, and they including 20,000 people last year. But the really cool thing is they've reduced their cost per rescue to $132. So starting in June, we partnered with them where every deal we do, we donate $396 to Love Justice so that we can rescue 3 children from trafficking because we have kids. So Sarah and I, we have a huge
Yeah.
heart for that. And right now we're doing probably around 8 deals a month. We can help 8 families save their homes, but also about 24 children from being trafficked. And I think through that, and posting content about that, and also the stuff with the orphanages that God is doing through our church that I could share about too. But with Owners Club, which is again the higher level mastermind, 2 of the people there, Amy and Nayeli, they invited me to become partners with them. And they've gone through domestic abuse. And I'm just learning about this, but their mission, our mission, and we've came up with the name Hope Haven Partners, is to provide permanent housing for domestic violence survivors. Because it takes a lot of courage for a mother and children to leave, but then when they go to a shelter, after 90 days, they have to leave. And most of
Right.
them don't have a place to go back to, so they go back to the abuser who is furious and mad that they left in the first place, so the abuse actually
Right.
gets worse. So
Yep.
that's something that we're working on right now. We're looking for multifamily in Michigan, where Amy is, but also some of the other red states like Tennessee, Florida, Texas. We're excited to start raising capital for that and start hopefully getting some deals for housing for them.
Man, so many questions from that. So you know me, I'm 6'3", like 200-pound white guy with these little daughters that look Asian. And I'm always, because you said you like stop it at airports and stuff. I always wonder if one of my kids had like a fit in the airport, if it would look like I'm like kidnapping my own kids or something. It's never happened. I've never gotten any weird looks because it's clear that they're my kids. But I've always wondered that, especially if we adopt, just scares the living daylights out of me. I got searched at the Canadian border. They were convinced I was a drug dealer because they couldn't believe that I drove from California in a nice car, a clean, nice car with no kids in it. And I always wonder about that stuff. I do want to ask about your foreclosure stuff. You said you guys are doing about 8 deals a month. What does that mean? What is a foreclosure deal?
Yeah, so we have a unique approach to foreclosure because most people, when they do foreclosure deals in our sub-2 community, they're looking to buy it or buy it subject to, again, not that that's right or wrong, but ours is to help the homeowner stay in their home. And the way we do that is we do need at least 35% equity in the property. And the way we help them is the way we mitigate risk is we create a new LLC, for that property, and then we transfer the title of that property to our LLC. So we hold the title to the property, and we can sell the property that has a lot of equity if we need to pay back our investors without going through a foreclosure process, which can take time and money. But then our exit strategy to pay our investors back is to purchase that property with a hard money loan, which you're probably familiar with is relatively easier than other exits. And we're just buying it from with our other LLC, so buying it from ourselves. Once we close that hard money loan, which takes on average 2 to 3 months, then the investors are out and they're paid back. What we do after that is using that same hard money loan, we're also going to pull out equity to have set aside 12 months of payments for the homeowner so that they don't have to make payments for a year. This gives them time to get back on their feet and pay off other debts, build up some reserves, and then we help them rebuild their credit. And the goal is for them to refinance that hard money loan into an FHA loan in a year. About 10% of the people are able to do that. So they just usually need more time. But after 2 years, about 40% of the people are able to do that, which is really cool because they get to stay in their home. And with affordable housing issues, if they do lose their home, it's just really hard, especially if they're in distress. But the other thing is that they have the right at any point in time to sell their home and keep their equity and to keep their appreciation.
So, okay, two questions. What happens to the other 60% after those 2 years that can't refinance? And then how do you guys make money in that?
So great question. So they either work with us longer. Some people are working with us for 5 years now to try to improve their situation to refinance and stay at their home, or they just sell their home and they keep their equity
Okay.
and appreciation. How we make money, we charge an upfront fee, which varies per the deal, but typically it's about, I would say, around 10% of the capital that's raised. So for example, let's say it's $1 million house. Part of the purchase, we would use the hard money loan we could do up to 80%. So let's say we do a hard money loan at 800K. The 200K for the down payment for the purchase, we would raise that from investors, but 10% of that is like 20K.
Okay.
And so
200.
20K, yeah.
Okay.
So 20K relative to $1 million home isn't a lot. I mean, if they were to sell the home, they would pay 50 to 60K in agent commissions.
Oh, you'd make 10% of that 20% down
Yeah,
payment.
whatever investor funds are used.
Got it. Okay. And the other 80% you said is hard money or a conventional loan?
Hard money.
Okay. So then the remaining 20% is the gator second lien position kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. We don't do it as a lien because we actually own the property from the beginning.
Okay.
So we would have a JV agreement that actually ties the investor to our LLC, which owns the property.
So is the value proposition to somebody losing their house, they haven't made payments, the value proposition is, hey, you're going to lose this house anyways. You're going to lose any equity you have in it. But if you sign this deed over to us, we'll make 20K and you have a very good shot at keeping your house and the equity. Is that the general summary?
Yeah, in essence, we are providing bridge financing for them to access their equity that they cannot access themselves because their credit is bad.
Okay.
Because when they're in foreclosure, they have mortgage rates, their credit's around 500. And we get most of our leads, our deals from a loan modification company we've worked with for over 5 years. By the time they get to us, they've usually tried other options and their sale date is usually pretty soon, within a week or two. So they're
Okay.
most of the time going to lose their property and equity anyways to the bank. But yeah,
Yeah.
to your point, like we help them stay in their home, tap into their equity to buy themselves at least a year and give themselves time to refi and stay in the house, or sell the house and still keep their equity plus appreciation, because over a year or two there's also appreciation. And then we just make our upfront fee of whatever it is, usually about 10% of the capital that's raised.
So you're getting pre-qualified leads sent to you guys. What is you send the commission to that lead generation company that you've been partnered with for 5 years?
Yeah, they get paid on the deal too, or anybody else that brings the deal to us. Usually the way we structure it is it can be 1 to 3% of the loan amount that we end up doing for the hard money loan. So it's not at the purchase price. So it can be so if you or anybody brings me a deal like, hey, here's somebody in foreclosure, they have at least 35% equity, they really don't want to leave their house, they want to stay in their house, which is probably most of the case. We can underwrite the deal, and if it makes sense, we can build in that for the person bringing us the deal.
And are you guys sending a physical person to the house to see the condition?
No, the hard money lender will do an appraisal, but
Okay.
yeah.
And they can do all that, this whole thing sounds complex. It can all happen in 7 days.
No, the hard money loan closes, it takes us about 2 to 3 months on average.
So if these people are 2 to 3 weeks from losing their home, how do you pause that process?
Yeah, so the way we do is we will do an initial underwrite, look at the comps to look at the value, and then check the title, make sure title's clean, and then get the owners okay. Then we create the LLC. But then to answer your question is we usually if they're in foreclosure, we stop the foreclosure in two ways. One is reinstate the loan, which means we're paying the back interest, fees, interest, whatever. And that's a smaller amount, typically anywhere from 25,000 to 50,000 just to bring the loan back to current. Or in certain cases, we have to pay off a loan that's ballooned. And so those amounts might be a little bit bigger. It might be 100,000 to 300,000 where we're paying off the entire loan so the property is free and clear. Once we do that, either we reinstate or pay off the loan, then the foreclosure is stopped. And then that's when we start the hard money loan process.
Okay. Sounds complex, but you guys, I know you're good at it. I want to pivot a bit because I feel like one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you is because I feel like you've done a good job of like really working your butt off and really hustling, but you seem very present with your wife and kids. How do you do that?
Great question. I don't really have any free time. I used to watch football and stuff, but I don't do that anymore. For a while, I was waking up super early, like you mentioned. I don't do that anymore because now I have a team, so we could talk about that by God's grace, so I can get a little bit more sleep. But I am super strategic with my time, and I've learned a lot from Pace Morby and these different successful people that I'm in programs with that the successful people like value their time more than anything else because that's our most
Limited.
time is our most valuable and limited resource that we cannot renew.
Yeah.
So I'm always like listening to something when I'm getting ready, when I'm driving. For example, even with my calendar, I'm super strategic where like I know I have 30 minutes to commute home. So whenever I schedule meetings, if I don't need to be in front of a computer, then I'll schedule those slots
Right.
first so that
Yeah.
I'll have more time. And then also there's is also understanding how to get into flow state where you're
Yeah.
up to 5 times more productive. Like Jim Quick's book Limitless has been a game changer because I've never heard of anybody talk about managing our brain, which is our most valuable or powerful technology,
Yeah.
and how your brain functions totally makes a huge difference on because we all have 24 hours in a day, right? Some people do so much with it, some people don't. And I think it's a lot to do with productivity and efficiency. So with the brain, there's like brain nutrition. I even know there's like foods that makes your brain perform faster. Drinking water itself is just a simple way to increase because if you're 2% dehydrated, that can drop your brain function by 30%. Sleep is a big thing, exercise is a big thing. So even with me, like I'm more motivated with performance, like mentally, than physical.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I won't work out because I feel lazy, but I'm like, wait, I need to work out so I can release the chemicals, endorphins to keep my brain function at high level, then like that'll be my motivation to work out. Going back to the flow state, like flow state is kind of like when you're in the zone when you have to remove all distractions and it takes you about 15 to 45 minutes to even get into that. So you really want to block out your time at least an hour and a half so you can give yourself into that flow state to make content, to write, to do strategic thinking, business planning, the stuff you need to do that we don't get to do as business owners. And when you're shifting context, I've also learned that it takes a lot of your energy. Like you're trying to do an email, then you get a text and you're trying to think and plan. And so again, it's really important to just block out those days. And then also to be aware of what times of the day that your brain is functioning at its highest level. So for me and most people, I think during the morning when my brain is fresh, I can do a lot more brain power stuff. So I put all my meetings in the afternoon where
Okay.
I can do meetings where I'm at 50%. So I reserve the earliest time. So I come in, respond to my text, check my run through my emails. I'll let my assistant keep me posted if there's anything urgent, but then I'll turn off my notifications, which by the way, on my phone, I've turned off all my notifications except text. Like I'll check my all the different apps and stuff when I want to because most of them aren't that urgent.
Hmm.
And so that I can really have at least 2, 3, 4 hours of flow state work a day where I'm usually making content and doing stuff to improve the business. And for my texts, I just respond to like when I go to a bathroom break, I'll just go through them. A couple quick hacks that I use is voice text. So do you
Okay.
use that at all?
I do, and I also send voice memos, which I found is really good for context.
Huge, yeah. Those two, because voice text you can text so much faster, and you can go through a bunch of voice text, whether it's DMs or text, like when I'm driving and I stop at a light. Or voice memos are great too, because that's a way to have conversations asynchronously. So me and my team, we do voice memos back and forth all day, so we don't have to actually schedule a time. So yeah, those are a few of the things that I think are small tweaks but make a big difference.
And then MacBook, switching to a MacBook so I can text on my laptop is huge. Okay,
Yes.
so we've talked about flow state on this podcast a lot. And
Okay.
I think myself and my guests have concluded that it is possibly the best way to feel satisfied, just feel good at the end of the day is to be in flow state. I've struggled personally to I feel like my current role, my current business projects are all manager type projects where it's just quick 15-minute little meetings here and there. It doesn't take a ton of, I'm not doing flow state type activities, but I want to do them. Based on what you know about me, what advice would you have for me? I know the simple one is like blocking off time and stuff, which I can do, but okay, if I block off time, what do I do in that time?
Do the activities that you enjoy the most and that makes you the most money.
For me, it's talking to people. So that's not really flow state unless you're on a walk with someone for an hour and you can really get into a good conversation. But I don't know. I want to be in flow state, but maybe I'm just trying to force a round peg into a square hole during a season where it's just not part of my life. I don't know.
Okay, let me ask you this. What are the 3 to 5 activities that generate income for you?
Building relationships.
Okay, and how does building relationships generate income? Can you explain that a little bit?
100% of my deals are all referral based.
So you get leads, like land deals?
Yeah, I'm a little more boutique, meaning I don't want to just fund one-off deals for random people. I want to have 5 all-stars where we're doing a lot of business together, kind of the 80-20. I'm almost there. I have 3 right now and looking at adding 1 more. So attending conferences, phone calls, texts, sending gifts, nurturing relationships, all of that stuff is super high impact and absolutely worth all my effort. Things like contracts and emails and setting up wires, my assistant does all of that and it's necessary stuff, but is not high impact. So I think I've zeroed in on what is good, but that's none of that is flow state stuff.
How
You
did you
know,
get the 3 relationships that you have right now?
going to conferences, being a quality person. Actually, the very first funding relationship, I was easy to work with. I was fast. I was reliable, reasonable, pleasant. And they said, hey, why don't you just fund all of our deals because we just like working with you. And I realized that was my secret sauce. And then I also go to visit them. Anyone who I want to do business with, I'll visit them in person.
Okay, so that sounds so maybe your flow state is like maybe you can increase your just going to more conferences, or I don't know how you can find more of those people, those like high volume people to do, but I think the other secret sauce you mentioned is your systems and processes, right? You're easy to work with, you're efficient. So maybe some of your flow state could be like sitting there and thinking about, hey, how can I create a better experience for my investors or my people doing deals with?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything to improve. Maybe it's already like really good. So yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I could just block off the time and then be okay being bored for a week and just sitting there, not really knowing what to do with my flow state time. But I have started working on an app that I don't know if we want to get into now, but that is deep work type stuff
Yeah.
where I go to a coffee shop and I'm using a app called Vibe Coding to code the app. I don't need a coder anymore. So that I guess that's deep work, and I'll work on that about twice a week.
Yeah, that's awesome. Maybe even just like thinking of additional strategies of how you can meet more of these people, like besides conferences, because I know conferences are maybe limited, they're set a certain time, but if there's any way you can meet these type of people, just maybe like coming up with a game plan of how to do that, like strategic
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I have 2 more operators right now that I'm courting, and if they're fully like in, then I'll be maxed out again. I do have some bandwidth right now. Currently, this is the first time in a few years where I have more capital than deals.
That's awesome.
So it's a good place to be in.
Yes.
It's really stressful if it's the other way around. But
Yes.
I think it's a teeter-totter that will very rarely be equal, and you just need to be okay with always having an imbalance of one being more than the other.
You always want to be oversubscribed, so that's great.
Yeah. All right, I want to hop into faith. We've talked about God's provision on this podcast a lot, and I feel like I haven't fully fleshed out this own theology in my own brain. So there's this Bible story where the disciples didn't have any money to pay their taxes, and Jesus was like, "Hey, go look in the fish's mouth." And then there's a gold coin in there. In terms of God's provision, do you think it's circumstantial? Meaning, if we're just an idiot and we've made bad decisions, does he retract his provision? Is it conditional? Or is it like he's always just cares about us? I know he always cares, but is there a certain extent where you can just make dumb decisions and he lets you sit outside in the rain so you learn your lesson?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's very multifaceted because I think it's like there's no one size fits all, I would say, because there are wisdom principles in Proverbs where if you're diligent, in general, it should lead to prosperity. If you're righteous, it should lead to prosperity and blessing. Borrower is slave to the lender. So if you don't make good decisions, and if you, like they say, the foolish like eat all their food and oil, but the wise save it up. So I think there's that part of it. But I also think God is definitely gracious, and I've experienced that a lot where I make bad decisions, but God has covered it. I think there's also part of it, it's like, what's your motivation for money? Because I believe that, like he says to Abraham, I bless you to be a blessing for all nations. In Isaiah, he says, I created all of you guys, all my sons and daughters for my glory. And I think God's ultimate purpose is for the salvation of all the nations, especially the unreached, which is the Great Commission. So if we want finances for that purpose and to help others for the advance of the gospel, I think like Jesus says, whatever you pray in my name, according to his character and his purposes, it will be done for you. But also he's a loving father who doesn't want to spoil his kids. And just like we wouldn't give our kids like all the ice cream they wanted, or we wouldn't want to reward them if they're acting out some bad behavior because we don't want to reinforce that behavior. I feel if money is an idol for you, which we see in like the rich young ruler, then I feel like God's not gonna feed into that. But I feel if you are centered in God's kingdom and will, that could open up more blessings. But of course, that's not like a definitive thing. It's because there's plenty of people in the Bible who were poor, who were godly. There's plenty of people in this world, third world countries, who have such great faith and love God and love people who don't have provision, and they die of hunger or lack of water. So I think it's such a varied thing. So I don't think there's a one size, but those are just some of my thoughts. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I'm still trying to work it out. I have days, I think this is improving, but I would say most days I'm not concerned about the future. I used to have a big fear of catastrophe, which I think is shrinking. But you and I are in a similar season where we have, actually your wife works, I forgot. Sarah works, but both of us have little kids. Your kids go to private school, actually. You have a mortgage in Southern California, 2 cars. Do you ever worry that it's just you're going to mess it up, and you ever worry that it's all going to go away?
I think I'm a more like oblivious optimist to a
Okay.
fault. So I don't really think about that stuff, but I also just, again, my situation is different than everybody else. I've seen God provide, and I just believe that he will, and I'm hoping he will. If things do change, like it could change where something happens and I'm not able to work or whatever, then we would downsize. We would do whatever it takes to, but ultimately I think the name of your podcast like is about being content and stuff. Our ultimate hope rests in Jesus and our eternal life with him. That's why some people could live in poverty, die because of lack of food, but at the end of the day, because of their faith in Christ, they'll have eternal riches. And the Bible teaches that we'll have everything in heaven without lack, and we'll get full presence of God and relationship and communion with Him and eternal glory and riches. So I think, relatively speaking, our time on earth is like a vapor or a breath, like the Bible says, that our eternity is eternal. What happens over there is basically the most important. And once we are there, God willing, by His grace, whatever happens in this life, whether we have abundance or not, like kind of Paul says, he's content, really won't matter. And I think a part of that is to just reorient our focus from ourselves, which all of us are naturally self-centered, and it's like about my life, my provision. But I think true surrender and true faith is reorienting our life around God and His kingdom, like we see in Revelation 4 and 5, where it's God on the throne, the living creatures, the elders, all of creation. It's all centered around God, and creation itself, including us as the creatures, are very peripheral. So that's how the true reality is. It's really centered on God and His glory. So some people
Yeah.
are meant to be martyrs, some people are meant to experience poverty. Whatever it is for me, like I think if that actually happens, I would just try to have that focus and, hey, you know what, I'll do the best I can. Not that we can be lazy, but as long as we're diligent and faithful, I'm just going to trust that that's God's will for me, and that I'm just going to look towards the eternal promises in Christ.
Years ago, I guess I'm summarizing what you just said. Years ago, I used to be really good with looking up at God, fixing my eyes on God. And when you do that, you literally can't look at the ground. And on the ground is where the broken glass is, stuff is on fire, it's chaos. But if you look at God, and if He truly exists and He truly cares about us, that should be all that matters. And I feel like a lot of times we go through seasons, and I've probably been in that season for a while, where we're just looking down at the ground and we're looking at all the things that can cut us, right? All the things we can stub our toe on. And if you just, either we're fools or it's true. If God doesn't exist, we're all to be pitied, right? Doesn't it say that in the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's good. Are you, in your marriage, are you the one who doesn't worry, and then Sarah's a bit of the worrier? Because in my marriage, it's the opposite, where my wife, she doesn't worry about a single thing. She even encourages me to buy nicer cars. I'm like thinking, do you know how much I have to make that money? It doesn't come from nothing. In your marriage, what is that? What is that conversation around money? Is there
I
stress
think
there?
we're both like not worriers, and I think to a fault. I think we should be more conservative and more like we don't budget and stuff like that. I feel like we should, but we just don't have the discipline to do it, to be honest. And I feel like between the two of us, like I'm probably more the one like, hey, I think we're probably spending too much on ourselves than my wife is. But yeah, I would say we're both more like your wife than you, I would say.
What's that like? You guys just, I just feel like you just live in paradise then.
No, we just don't really track and stuff like that. But we're
Yeah.
not like, again, to like what you said earlier, we live in Los Angeles. Our standard of living is really high. And so I feel like we are still pretty like, we're not extravagant, I feel, but at the same time we do order a lot of stuff on Amazon, for example. But I'm also the person that like, I would never get the guac at the store. I would never buy the drink because
Yeah.
it's $3 at the restaurant, whatever. So I don't know. So it's like a balance. We're not like crazy extravagant, but we're not like super disciplined either.
I can attest to that. I think you guys are pretty in the middle there, because I've seen your spending and it's pretty reasonable, pretty conservative. I grew up in the family. For me, when I got married, it was a culture shock. I grew up where if you do go to a restaurant, you order like the cheapest meal with the most amount of protein, and you don't get any soda, don't get dessert, just get your one entree, tip 15%, maybe 20 if they're really good, and then you leave, and that's it. And then when I married my wife, it's like you go out to eat, it's like party. You get whatever you want, like anything. You don't even look at the price, just get whatever you want. And it was a culture shock. And I will say, even though the bill with my wife's method is 3 times more, you also have 3 times more fun. So it's baked into the price.
Yeah, that's cool. Definitely not there yet, but
I sent you some questions. I feel like we've covered a lot. What do you think motivates you? Are you, I feel like 18 months ago, you had a wake up call where you're like, holy shit, I have to make money. Otherwise, this mortgage broker thing might not work in a few years. Was that kind of the motivation? And if so, is that still the motivation? Or have you moved to a season of, I enjoy business, I feel creative, I feel like the horizon is my limitation? What does it feel like now?
Yeah, I think it's both because there's definitely that base level of, hey, I have to pay my bills or else we're going to lose the house and provide for the
Yeah.
kids. And I think that's still there because my income is decent, but then I also have a team. So I have two, actually three employees, like one's a couple, but I feel like it's necessary for me to scale because that's all the delegation as you have an assistant, the whole 10x easier than 2x, who, not how. I feel like God has us on this certain path and he's opening the doors for that. But beyond that, like I know you believe this too, is like money doesn't buy happiness. We talked about that. And they've done studies of that, right? After a certain income, you don't get joy. And I'm still like Old Navy all day. I have my dream car, the Odyssey. I'm not going to upgrade that. We're not going
Yeah.
to buy a house. We've already have our forever home. It's not like the most fancy, anything extravagant. But so I know making another $1 million or whatever a year or five, whatever, it's not going to increase our happiness because we know ultimately that's in God. And then what your podcast is about, I don't want to sacrifice especially time and energy from my children because our time with them is very short and they're going to be
Yeah.
gone in a second. They're going to grow up. But right now, I think what motivates me is more impact. Of course, the bills are it's still there. I'm still very much, I'm not cleared from that yet. But one thing that God's done is I've had a burden to just want to help people in need for many years, like at least 10, 15 years. But because of my just lack of discipline or unfaithfulness, and part of that is busyness, not an excuse, but I haven't really been able to do much of that. And that's always been a burden. But recently, this past trip in May, our church has been supporting orphanages in Ensenada. And I got to go on a trip with my daughter Bella. And we went into this orphanage. The room smelled of urine. I posted on the Instagram that we need $3,000, whatever, to replace the mattresses and pillows and covers. And God provided that in less than 2 days. And we went
Wow.
back and we were able to do that. And then now we raised another, God raised another $9,000 to where we bought the mattresses. We're going back next week actually to do it for two other orphanages for 58 kids. And through that, like God has connected business and social media with impact. And
Yeah.
that's also opened the door, like I mentioned earlier, with helping domestic violence. And now our foreclosure deals, we help families and partnering with trafficking victims. So I feel like God has really just used that to connect the two. And the impact is what motivates me. And then also just being able to influence people. I get messages, sometimes texts like, hey, like my coworker, he told me the other day, because of your orphanage stuff, my wife and I signed up to help at a local shelter because we care about
Mm.
animals. I was like, that's super cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
different people will say, hey, you inspired me to do this or make content or join owners club or join sub 2. And I'm like, hey, that's awesome because I want, they say you're most powerfully positioned to help the old you. So the old me was stuck in mortgage, stuck to 9 to 5, didn't have time freedom, flexibility, didn't really have a growth mindset, which is an awesome book by Carol Dweck, I think it is. But my journey, I think a lot of what it's been a part of, what it's been about is just going from a fixed mindset of, hey, I graduated college on paper, I went to a good school, had a good GPA, but I didn't even know what to do and I couldn't do anything for myself. I couldn't get out of my stuck in mortgage because I didn't know the tools. I didn't know that I can change things. Of course, it's by God's grace, but now I think the shift in the mindset is, hey, with all the programs and content and information available out there, if you really just work hard and learn stuff, you can learn entrepreneurship, real estate investing, or a lot of different things. And what I've realized is I think that the school system doesn't really prepare us for success or teach us the necessary skills because I've realized that, or I've learned that school systems were designed back in the Industrial Revolution where they're meant to produce factory workers that clock in and out, or in today's world, the corporate world, W-2 workers. So they're not going to teach you like entrepreneur and marketing and a lot of these different things, investing. So I guess that's probably one of my passions or my message that I'm trying to put out there. That, hey, if that's for you or if you're interested in that, like there are things you can learn, things you can do to change your life and improve things for your family.
I love it. You mentioned something that I wanted to ask about and then I forgot. Your social media, I believe you have like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, you had a few hundred followers, and now you have over 7,000. How have you done that? How much time does it take? Does it feel like a burden? What's that like?
Yeah, great question. So I was never a social media person. Until this day, I don't really scroll. I just like to make content because it's for business. So about a couple of years ago in August, I started to do social media because I felt it was necessary for my mortgage business. And when I got into real estate investing last March, I shifted that to be here. It takes me right now because I used to do like I used to try to do a reel a day, but then now I've in the last 2 or 3 weeks I've increased it to 3 reels a day,
Okay.
and it takes me probably about an hour and a half or 2 hours sometimes, but
Per
it's
day.
really per day, yeah. And what I've learned is that it's really about leading with value and building trust through value. And the reason I invest in content is because it's a trust accelerator. I think it's the best way to build trust, which whether it's raising capital or for any business, it builds trust at scale. Because
Yeah.
without that, you have to prospect, make
Hmm.
calls, set up meetings, and you're limited by your time in the day and how many people you can meet with. But with content, because I'm sharing value of like real estate investing, or I like to just have fun with it and share all kinds of stuff about fitness, mindset, whatever, people get to know you, and then people do business with people they know and trust. And you build that trust, and one of your content pillars is whatever your business you're doing. So when they're already gonna know that, but I don't just post that because if it's all about business, it's boring and they don't have you don't have depth of character. But if they get to know you, and content scales because like number one, I post something and hundreds of people or thousands of people know, and then I always things always come up like when I meet somebody at Zoom or at an event, like, hey, I saw you post about this. There's no way that people that many people could know about my life without content. And then also
Right.
too, like Pace says, every video you make is a clone, like an employee
Yeah.
that doesn't get sick and doesn't have a fight with their wife, doesn't get hungry, and he just has like content. And I'm not nowhere near him, but if you look on my thing, I think in the last 30 days I have 540,000 views. There's no way any other, even close that
Right.
I can get that,
You couldn't
any
talk
other
to
way.
540,000 people unless you were like
I'm,
preaching
I
in
don't think that's even
stadiums.
possible. So,
Yeah. I mean
um,
that's like 10 stadiums. That's 10 football stadiums full of people that you would have had to blast that message out to.
exactly. So those are the reasons why I'm investing in it, and it depends. I have a full-time social media director, and he used to be doing my content, but I feel like that's something for me at least. I want to put in the heart and the soul into it, and since I've been doing the 3 a day, I've learned a lot of stuff. I'm using ChatGPT. I put up tutorials on my YouTube channel for anyone who's interested, but I enjoy it. So for me, like my deep flow work state, the stuff that I feel like makes me the most money, is making content. So I hire somebody to do all the other stuff, and that's one of the
Mhm.
things that I enjoy doing, and I like making content.
What's your advice? Because I believe in the cloning yourself thing. I'm sold on how effective it is. But I've resisted it. I think you and I have talked about this while camping, where I've resisted it because number one, I don't want to do the work. Number two, because I just don't enjoy it, I don't think. Number two is I don't want to always be have my phone out when I'm walking around. Let's say I'm on a walk with my kids and I have this epiphany. I don't want to whip out my phone and kind of ruin that moment, right? I just I don't know. But at the same time, if somebody followed me around with a camera, especially through airports and my travels, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't want to always have my phone in my own face. What's your advice to somebody in my position?
The importance of it, you feel like it would help your business, but then you don't want to do it because
I don't want to do the work. I don't want to always be thinking about how to capture a moment. At the same time, if I paid someone to follow me around, I really wouldn't mind.
I think again, it's got to be like a labor of love. It's got to be something. Eventually, I can get to the point where like somebody could follow and still. But even like Pace says, like he makes his own content, 15 minutes a day. He has 600,000 followers on IG and whatever. But he's like his team makes content, but it's just not the same because they don't know real estate, and it's not authentic to him. As authentic to him doing it. As far as doing the work, I know it's hard. Anything else, I think part of it is just it's a new learning curve. But once you get the hang of it, like anything else, it can be enjoyable. The other part I would say is maybe it's a reframe of, hey, I'm doing this for business. Of course, that's part of that's part of the fun reason you start with. But then when you reframe it to, hey, this actually is a tool to help people, to add value, to educate people, to help people improve their lives, but ultimately it's going to help people know God. Like, God can use social media, and I'm very open about my faith. I think maybe I don't know if that would help, maybe if you reframe it and add that part to
Yeah.
it, it might be worth it for you to do the work and learn the skill.
Are you like, how do you think of what to say? I'll have occasional moments where I'm like, oh, this is a great thought I should share with people. And I do share text, usually a couple different threads I'm on. But other than those random epiphanies, how are you thinking of 3 different videos every single day to post?
Yeah, first of all, the great question. So even with your epiphanies, all you need is this little Holyland mic, which my YouTube channel, I have all this equipment. This is like $140. So you take this part and this little thing, and you plug this into your phone, like here, and then
And you just start talking.
you clip it on here, so you get really good audio, and then you just talk, and then you just post it, put a caption on there. I have tutorials on my YouTube you can check. And then instead of you typing that into your chats, here's how where you can scale and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You make a post, and then you put that link into the chats.
But
And then
which
people,
link?
like your
Oh,
Instagram link.
yeah.
And then you could be like, hey, here's a cool thought, and then you put the Instagram link, so people would click the link, and then they'll still hear you say your thought, but then they're gonna also watch you're gonna drive traffic to your Instagram. So you're already doing it by sharing it, but you'll just be verbalizing it and taking a few extra minutes to put it up as a post.
I'm trying to figure out where the resistance comes from within me because even with this podcast, the editor will use AI to create a bunch of shorts from each
Yeah.
episode. So our conversation right now might create 5 to 10 shorts,
Yeah.
which is like free content. And all I need to do is just literally post it on my own social media, but I don't because I don't feel like it. And so I'm having my assistant finally do it, but
Nice.
I don't know. There's just a resistance in me. I just don't want to click the buttons, but
Yeah,
maybe
that's interesting. Are you afraid of what people might think, or like your
I
friends or
don't
your
care.
family?
No, I'm very open.
Okay.
I just literally don't want to go in and click the buttons. I guess I'm getting lazy or something. I don't know.
Have your assistant do it. I think that's perfect.
She is now. Yeah, it's a new project for her.
But to
Sir,
answer,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, to answer your other question, I think you just come up with content pillars of like different things that can add value, like your hobbies, your interests, family, parenting, your faith, different things you're doing. So the way to think about content from Pace and Omar and these different programs is like you just document what you're already doing. So it becomes
Yeah.
kind of part of your, like what you were saying earlier. Yeah, hey, I have a phone, I have a mic, I have a tripod. So if there's anything I'm doing, you can just take a B-roll, which is just like a 5-second clip of yourself, and then you can create a post where you just put like a hook on the screen, and then whatever
Yeah.
the topic is, and then you could write the caption in there. So I think everybody has so much value, like things you've gone through, things you've learned, investing, land, all the stuff that you're doing to help people, testimonials. I think again, it's a process, right? Like before I would struggle to do 3 reels a week. But I think as you do it, the more you do it, the more creative you get. I think of it as like arts and crafts time. I was taught this by
Yeah.
Brendan Bouchard of, hey, it's not like I have to reframe my mindset too. Like sometimes, okay, I have to make content, but it's no, I get to make content. It's like arts and craft. Like when you're a kid, I
Maybe
get to
that's
express my
Josh.
creativity.
Joshua, I hated arts and crafts as a kid. It was like torture, gluing strings together and just so maybe I don't know because I have a cool life. I do cool stuff. I'd rather
Yeah,
just pay
document
someone
it.
I want to pay someone to follow me around. I
No,
need to
don't. You
find
don't
a
have to do
guy.
that because again, it's going to be a waste of money until you learn how to do it yourself. And it's all by putting in the reps. Follow Pace's channel, and then you can tell the stuff that he does himself and the ones that his team does, and his gets way more engagement and everything. But then what he told Owners Club on a recent call is, if you're new to social media, like for the first 6 months, don't care about views or comments or whatever. Don't care about the font. Just do the reps and just post as much as you can, and just make it about that
Yeah,
first.
like
And once
Gary
you get
Vanderchuck.
the hang of that, then you can worry about the fine tuning, because a lot of times our thinking of, hey, I'm trying to make this perfect or this perfect actually stops us from doing the most important part, which is the reps.
I just don't want to do any of the reps. I want to have someone do the reps for me. But that's
I
my
don't
own
believe you
problem.
can do it, but because there's some things you can't delegate, or unless until you get the skill and the thing first, and then you can delegate it like after that.
Yeah. Sir, let's wrap it up. I feel like we've
Okay.
covered a lot. What plugs do you want to make? What events are you attending next? How can people find you and reach out?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is my Instagram, which is at Joshua Sun26. So Joshua SUN26. That's the same handle for my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel, I have my capital raising class. So if anybody's interested in that, social media stuff, including step-by-step tutorials and like how to edit a reel, productivity stuff that we talked about, how to get the most out of your time. Because when I transitioned, my wife was working full time. I had 2 kids, so really important to squeeze the most out of your day. But Instagram, I post a lot of just whatever things that are helpful to me that I hope can help other people. You can DM me and be happy to help you, whether you're looking to transition out of your W-2 or learn to be more productive or learn about investing or make an impact. Those are all kind of the stuff that I'm always happy to chat about.
I love it. And I get to hang out with you a few times a year. We're about an hour from each other. An hour in LA is, man,
5 hours.
that might as well be like on the other side of the state. But I appreciate your time. It's been fun. And I'm glad we get to take some of our conversations public because you and I have had similar chats. We've been standing, you and I have cold plunged in a mountain stream before having similar
No, you have. I
conversations.
didn't do that.
Yeah.
I don't have the
You
courage.
you watched me and you watched me cold plunge.
Yeah, you do so
But
many cool things, bro.
it's good stuff. Appreciate your time. And until next time.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. Appreciate you, brother. You're awesome. Love what you're doing, man, and how you're helping all your community.
Thanks, Josh. All right. That's it for today. I hope this conversation got you thinking and maybe even questioning a few things. And that's the point. This isn't about having all the answers. It's about figuring it out together. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas, make sure to subscribe and follow me over at theothersideofenough.com. Let's keep the conversation going and see you next time.